So welcome to the
Right.
AdaptX podcast, where we have conversations with individuals who are building accessible and inclusive businesses or products, advocating for inclusion, or excelling in adaptive sports. Our intention is never to speak on behalf of those with disabilities, but rather amplify their ideas and voice so we can help other people become more inclusive and accessible in their work as well. Today I'm joined by Brad Clark of BC Adaptive Fitness. They have in-person classes out in California for individuals with disabilities, as well as online offerings as well. Brad, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, man.
So maybe we can take it back to your education background and kind of university. As you were studying in school, is there a specific direction that you kind of expected your career to go into?
Okay, so it's a great starting point because when I when I first started all this, it was obviously it was just an idea, but originally, so basically I did plumbing for 7 years before I did any of this, and but I also volunteered at a camp called Rad Camp since I was about 15 years old, and when I was 19 years old, I'm in this. I'm out there volunteering at Rad Camp, and I see about 130 individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities. Two out of three of them were overweight or obese, and I knew that 99% of them have underlying health conditions. And my sister's one of them. And I was like, these guys got to move. They got to start moving. And I was like, what? I was like, so I started thinking, I was like, okay, maybe if we can get them involved in some kind of gym or something. And so I started looking at places for them to work out, and I couldn't find anything. I was like, huh. I was like, well, I love working out. I love working with people with special needs. And then so literally like the day I thought of that, I was like, I don't think I slept for like 2 days. My mind was racing. I was just like thinking of all these things. And ended up already at this point I already dropped out of college. And I went and then so I went back to college and I started at like Math 1, English 3, whatever at community college and ended up working through, got my undergraduate at Cal State Fullerton in kinesiology. And in my undergraduate, I actually met my advisor, Dr. Daniela Rubin. And through my process of my undergraduate, there were people that were interested in working with people with special needs, but most people were looking for occupational therapy and physical therapy that were interested in working with people with special needs. But no one was looking to try and create like or work with a maybe like some kind of either gym or create some kind of system where people with disabilities are able to work out continuously and not just work on like fine motor things as well as work on fixing injuries. And yes, those obviously are important, but making sure that individuals just have access to exercise as a regular regimen, like we all do, is important. So, um, in my undergraduate, ended up doing a little bit of research and then when I finished with my undergrad, I was trying to figure out if I wanted to do a physical therapy route or a master's of science route. Um, and so I ended up going with the master's of science strictly because I was trying to create something new instead of trying to maybe because like well I'll simplify it like my thought process at the point was like okay physical therapists they fix people. I was like, we're not trying to fix individuals with disabilities. We're just trying to improve their quality of life. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do masters. I'm gonna try and see if we can come up with something cool. And in my master's program, COVID screwed up everything. First of all, so ended up adding another year to that. And originally, what we are gonna do is a in-person intervention for like a group class for individuals with disabilities, intellectual and developmental disabilities. Then we narrowed it to just people with Down syndrome, and then we ended up with COVID happening, we ended up doing an online intervention, and we created something an at-home progressive resistance training for adults with Down syndrome. And so we create I believe it was a 10-week intervention, and basically it was like the exercises progressively increased. So it was actually pretty cool. So what we did is we actually, so for example, for like a sit to stand exercise, we would shoot the exercise at 14 repetitions for the video, for the actual film. But for weeks 1 and 2, we would only show 6 repetitions. And weeks 3 and 4, we would bump it up to 8 repetitions, and we would continually progress. And then we did that for a bunch of exercises, and making sure that individuals would be able to get a full body exercise every time they came and hopped onto our video. So that was pretty cool. I actually enjoyed that a lot. The people we used to film it, we it was one of them was my sister's. She was one of the models because we felt it was very important that individuals with Down syndrome were actually models for the exercise, so that when people with Down syndrome are trying to go to do it, they see someone like themselves and say like, "Hey, that person's doing it. They look like me. I can do it." So we actually used two neurotypical people, a male and a female, one being me, and then two individuals with Down syndrome, male and female. So it was a pretty cool experience. Despite the COVID that messed up a bunch of stuff, we made the best of it.
Yeah, you said a lot of things in there that kind of echo some of the things we look at. Like, one, that adaptive fitness doesn't have to be reserved for physical therapy. A lot of our young adults and older adults with disabilities find it motivating to be in an environment that's, like you said, not rehabilitative, but performance oriented. So I think that is definitely a way where strength conditioning can hopefully kind of bridge that gap. And there just needs to be more facilities that are willing and competent in terms of accommodating people with different needs. But is so you had your master's degree project that revolved around this. Did it then like transition into what you do now? Is training people with disabilities the only population that you work with now, or do you kind of work with various groups?
So basically, it's a good question because what we did in my master's program, we just literally transferred all over to what we do in my business, and we just um, I think we almost used it pretty close to the exact same warm up. It's a full body warm up, and it's almost designed as like a superset warm up. So like you'll like target your upper body, like say so for example, like the beginning of the warm up starts with small forward arm circles, big forward arm circles, goes to high knees, and then back up to small backwards arm circles, big backwards arm circles, the butt kicks. So we really try and optimize the physiological aspect of muscular strength and endurance. So when we are training individuals, always try to make it as efficient as possible. And then actually, I'll go back to answer your same question. We um we train pretty much anyone. Like we have neurotypical, we have individuals with autism, Down syndrome, cerebral palsy. So like yesterday, actually, I go. This is most of the people they come to me, but I do have one client, and he was really my second client ever when I started, and his name is Jay. And this is actually a pretty cool story. So Jay, he has quadriplegic cerebral palsy, spastic cerebral palsy to be specific, and is pretty severe. But mentally, he's there. He knows what's up. He knows what's going on. Um, he has also something called a wind sweeping hip. So for maybe someone who's listening, that's what happened is when like so basically your torso is facing forward and both your legs are like one to the side and they're kind of affixed there. Um, his mom reached out to me and she's like, Brad, I don't know what's going on. Jay has had 3 or 4 spasms in the past 5 months, so bad that he's had to go to the ER every single time. And this dude's freaking, he's tough as hell. Like, so, like, if he's talking about being in pain, it's something serious. So for him to go to the ER, that's like, when I heard that, and I've known Jay, I know Jay from Rad Camp. So I've known him since I was 15 years old when I started volunteering for that camp. So I've known the guy for a long time. Um, so when I heard he was in pain, I'm like, oh shit, like it's serious. And so basically I went in there and like this time I was like still forming the business, still forming protocols, still putting things together. And I was just honest with her. I was like, I'm not really. I told her I was like, I'm not really sure what to do, but I'm gonna come in and I'm gonna just give my best shot. I'm gonna try and analyze the situation. And my best theory was that since his wind sweeping hip was something that he's been dealing with. My what my guess is that his neurological system was trying to correct his hips and trying to put him in a neutral position. Um, Straight up massage fixed everything. The doctors, they put him on all these pain pills, they put him on these GI pills, and I think after like 4 weeks of massage, only one time a week, got him off all the pain pills. And so, and like something that might be interesting to you and some listeners is that when people that have spasticity on the level of tonicity, when it's reduced, we actually found so like the level of spasticity was reduced and bringing tonicity to more of like a normal tonicity instead of spasticity. We actually found that he was able to have way better motor function. So once we got his legs and pain under control, we actually started. I just started doing massage on his upper body. He went from when he got his hair cut, someone having to hold his head up, to actually gaining control of being able to postural control his cervical spine, and that was straight up just from massage. Then like he's not able to necessarily exercise, so there's a lot of cool things that came out of that.
That's awesome. Yeah, and so the classes, like, is that more of a personal training versus the group classes, and then you guys also do some small groups?
So so right now we have 5 group class locations. So as I'm sure you're familiar with, individuals with disabilities are not able to access things as well as most people. So what we do is we actually do pop-up locations. So we actually have kind of northern Orange County kind of on lock, and so we'll do group classes in that situation. And the group classes we have, I mean, we'll have like on average anywhere from like 12 to I think on Tuesday we had like 27 people, and it was just insane. It's like organized chaos. It's like it's pretty sick, dude. Like it's like everyone's working out. We have like 4 interns working with us. We got my staff going. We have like a volunteer or two running around it, and we have this. Everyone's working out. Everyone gets their sets in. And whenever people come to our group classes, they get a full body exercise. We work on upper body push pull, lower body push pull, core strengthening, coordination balance, and we spike their heart rate once every time they come to a group class.
That's good. Yeah, so the structure of your staff is you're getting, do you have several coaches and then in addition a few interns as well and volunteers?
So right now it's me and my manager Andrea. Her and I have been working together a long time. She was actually an intern of mine when I was a health and fitness director at a day program before I started my business. So her and I, what we do is we just train everybody. We just train them brand like when they come in, we train them. We put them in situations where they can succeed, so that way our athletes can succeed. And so, for example, we'll have stations, and so we will train them how to run a certain station. And we start them off a little small. Say, hey, we want you just to focus on how to do this exercise, and then want you to implement this exercise properly, making sure their breathing's correct, making sure they're going through full range of motion, making sure they're engaging their muscles properly. And um, another huge thing that I feel like is just overseen is just the uh, the quality of exercise. Um, it's like we just scream it the whole time. We're insane about it. It's like quality, not quantity. We want to make sure they're moving correctly. Everyone needs to, and like disability or not, if you're doing something with crap form, you're gonna move like crap. So we need to make sure that our people with disabilities who are already susceptible to motor dysfunction, low muscle tone, they need to really focus on their form. So it's super important, and I think that we've seen a lot of I'm not obviously not gonna say anything about other people, but like I've seen like on Instagram and stuff, I've seen other people trying to do what we do, and it's like when we see people they're giving maybe a really good effort, but the exercise isn't being effective. And it's I think people that are in our shoes that are trying to work with individuals with disabilities really need to take a step back and regress the exercises and stop putting so much stress on the individuals and really focus on making sure that the form is correct, because they're just gonna put those individuals in a situation where they're gonna strengthen those muscle imbalances.
Yeah, I think
Go ahead, go ahead.
one of my biggest gripes, I try not to be cynical because I think every opportunity for people with disabilities to be more active is a net positive. But like using disability as an excuse for like accepting like subpar performance and subpar like coaching, like they
Yeah.
think that they're just gonna check the box and that that's sufficient, or they're just like I see it actually just as much on like LinkedIn through a few popular like adaptive fitness instructors, just like couple people with Down syndrome sitting next to a stationary bike and they're like both like turning the pedal with their hands, and then it's like, oh, applaud
Yeah.
so and so for working out, they're doing such a great job, and it's just clearly just trying to like drive engagement. But that's like an inadvertent consequence of that is just everyone sees that and they're like, wow, that's I guess that's what people with disabilities can do, and the expectation just becomes like lower and lower. And so I think that's like
Dude,
my biggest
100%.
concern is like rewriting that narrative and trying to get people to expect more out of those with disabilities, but also like having the tools to like safely progress them through exercise.
Yes, yes. You said it really well, man. Because we'll see these individuals and like for example, like you'll see the guy next to a stationary bike and he's like pushing the pedal or something. It's like he's not doing anything.
Right.
And if he was doing it, he's not doing it right. And it's like, first of all, those individuals that are posting that and using it for engagement online, you're just if you're listening to this, you're just enabling the stereotypes. You're not helping the community at all. You're just, like
Absolutely.
it's 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 moving backwards really. And so
What
like I've seen it before. Like they'll get these super viral videos, and it's like that is like the worst form I've ever seen in my life. It's crazy. So
Yeah, it's
go ahead. I'll
tough.
let you go.
Like as someone that works with a lot of people with disabilities in the fitness space, it's always tough to like find that balance between like sharing my clients' successes, but not feeling like I'm like using them for engagement. So like I want to celebrate what they're doing well, but I also don't want it to be because it always shifts to like, wow, Brendan, you're doing such a great thing by like training people with disabilities. And I'm like, no, like that's not what I'm trying to show you. Like it's not a noble act. Like I'm not trying to draw any attention to myself, but people always just gravitate to like that idea that like,
Yeah.
wow, this is such great work you're doing. I'm like, no, I don't want you to see the work that I'm doing. I want you to see the work that this athlete is putting in. And it's not like supposed to be inspirational because they have a disability. It's like it's supposed to be inspirational because despite their disability, they're still training a lot harder than so much of the population. So it's always that tough, like putting content out, finding that balance between like demonstrating competency, but not having it turn into just some like inspirational narrative. It's been a tough balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I can 100% relate to that because, and first of all, just as a brother with someone who has special needs, it is a good thing we're doing. It is a good thing. It's something that not a lot of people are doing. So and I appreciate what you're doing. Like as a brother of someone who has someone with Down syndrome, like it is important what we're doing. Like it is somewhat of a noble act because no one is else doing it. So like I appreciate you for doing it, Brendan. Like seriously. But for like the Instagram thing, like it's I'm so bad at it, dude. And I like when I say I'm bad at it, like I mean like I know like the thing is like if I wanted to be good at it, if I want to focus on it, I could do it. But my thing is it's like I have so many of my athletes who are just they're just working their ass off and they just try so hard and I'm not just there with them, either whether it's a group class or a personal training session. And it's like I was like I want to be there with them in the moment. I don't
Right.
want to I don't want to whip my. It's hard to whip my phone out and be like, okay, like I know you're going to this breakthrough moment, but I want to like I want to hold on. Let me film you. Let me film you have an emotional moment. It's like no, I want to be there with them. So like I don't know. I post like I don't know, like maybe like 3 times a month. I'm awful at it. I
Yeah,
gotta
the
hire someone or
only
something.
like
I
the
don't know.
only way that I've found to be able to create consistent content is to like have someone there filming for me. It makes it not genuine, like you said, if you're training someone and then you're like, wow, this is going great, let me film. Like the only way I've been able to like consistently create content over the last 5 or 6 months is because I did hire someone to like
Oh
manage
yeah,
that job. And I think it's important to get that footage. And I found myself using it in a lot of different scenarios, whether it's posts or integrating it within educational videos. So it's good to have, but like you said, it's the people that are making a lot of content on their own typically aren't the ones that are like coaching a lot. So for you and I being like the ones that are running a lot of sessions, we almost have to outsource
Yeah,
that
man.
social media side of things because we're too busy with actually working with athletes.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, that's exactly it. And um, I don't know, maybe I'm answering this your question better now. But so like for our group classes, we'll do through our 5 locations of group classes. We have like I think it's 8 classes a week, and then I do personal training. I actually do it out of my garage. I turn my garage into a gym, super accessible for everyone, especially me. And so like all like like I'll do my morning. Usually I'll try and get like a jujitsu session in at like 6 a.m. or something. Come home, do breakfast, whatever, and then start doing sessions at like 9 a.m. And then from like 9 to 1, I do personal training sessions, and then like from 2 to 6, we'll do group classes. And like the thing about our group classes is we actually will do so. I know you have no relative like or understanding of like where my when I say Fullerton or Brea or anything like that. So say we'll do like a group class A, and then we pack up, and then we drive 20 minutes, and we set up at group class B, and so that'll take and like what doing that is like it's about 2 hours. Like so, like just like I always like give it me and my staff a little bit extra time. So we'll do group class A. So we get there, we set up, run the class, pack up, go to group class B, get there, set up, run the class, and we pack up, and then we're done around like 6 p.m. And then I head back to my pad, and I do like another two sessions maybe. I'm done at like 8:30 at night. So I mean they're long days, but I love what I'm doing. It's like it's pretty cool, and I think working with individuals with disabilities is it's like one of the coolest things. Like because you're working with people that not everyone gets a chance to, and like I think people are always like, oh my God, that must be like so hard. Or I'm like, dude, like I'm working with like some of the sickest people in the world.
Yeah.
Like these like these are literally like these are people that like no one else gets to work with. I was like, you guys are looking at it a different way. So I mean, it's just, and I feel like you have like a similar feeling. I don't know, maybe not, but I think it's just like it's something that is just super unique, and that a lot of people they just don't even see it.
Yeah,
They're
I
just
mean, my
like they're like,
life's
oh my
revolved
God, that's
around it
so
for the
you're good.
last like 15 years as well. Like you had that first experience at a camp. I had my first experiences through Special Olympics and Best Buddies in high school, and it like just kind of molded my approach to my career. And I met individual Jacob with Down syndrome and autism when I was 16, started becoming his PCA when I was 19, and now he lives with my wife and I every weekend. So I can definitely relate to like the you having a sibling with Down syndrome. I more or less have this kid who's been a part of my family for the last 11 years with Down syndrome as well. And like I just want to see exercise become more accessible for people like him and just like more opportunities. I was curious, like, how do you find those locations that you have the classes at? Are they strictly outside or?
Yeah. So good question because so first of all, it's super cool what you're doing for that dude. Is it Jacob?
Yeah.
Yeah. And like and like first of all, before we get there, I just want to point out I always have like a special place for people that um don't necessarily like so like individuals that work with people with special needs, but they don't have it in their family. It's like for me, it's like I can't imagine. I like if my sister April was in my life, I have a hard time believing I would have be in this industry. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
for sure.
So so people like that are doing it, just like they're just like people that saw it and like, oh, this is cool. I'm like, I really applaud you guys. Um, but for group classes, so what we do is like it's actually kind of tough. So we do have like outside locations, and we only do that on Saturday. But what we do is like it's because it's like it's one of those things where sometimes people they don't want people with disabilities in their location. We've been kicked out of like I don't know like 5 places, and it's like and they're like oh they never give like a real reason. It's like okay, I got it. I loud and clear. Got you, bud. So it's like we're like churches are really cool. We've had like but like now the people that we are working with are awesome. They're great. I'm very thankful that we have like great relationships with these people. So we have like 2 churches, one gym, um, a dance studio, So it's, you know, and then it's just, and then we do a park. I don't know, like I'm just waiting for it to get kicked out of that, I guess. I don't know. But it's like but like it's so like I'm like stepping on my words, but what's super important is just finding people that understand what you're trying to do. Because we've worked even with people that are in the same industry, but they didn't see what we're trying to do. They're like, oh, you're just doing a workout class. I'm like, no, it's like it's so much more than a workout class. Like we're literally trying to change these people's lives in the future. Like we're trying to make sure that these people are set up for success. We're not just it's not just a workout class. Like for you, when you go to a workout class, it might just be a workout class for you, but we're not doing just workout class. This is like a yeah, it's super fun and we got like good music going and everyone's like having a blast. But this is serious stuff we're doing here. And when people see what we're trying to do and like they see like a little insight, they're like, oh, okay, we want you guys here. We want to help you out. Like, people offer like, oh, okay, we'll just do it for free. I'm like, no, 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 come on. This is a partnership. We'll pay you still.
Yeah.
And I think it's important to pay people because that way you can still have you got some spit in the game instead of just being able to, let people do whatever they want with you.
Yeah, that's another thing where like I feel like, are you for profit or a nonprofit?
So I have BC Adaptive Fitness, which is a for-profit company, and I have a National Adaptive Fitness Foundation, which is a nonprofit company, which we
And
just started.
does
We just launched it last August.
and what does the nonprofit do?
So what we're trying to do with the nonprofit is one, we're trying to allow individuals with disabilities to, access and funding for adaptive fitness programs. So And we're not just trying to like do it for B stats fitness. We want to go all over. We want to do it for companies like I want to help people like in your neighborhood.
Hmm.
People that are like, hey, I want to go work out at Brendan, and they can't afford it. We want to send money to you guys. We want to like get you guys hooked up. We want to make sure that you're like Jacob's friend can make sure he can go to the gym.
Hmm.
Excuse me.
Yeah,
And then
I think it's
the sec-
important. I think it's important that like some inclusive fitness businesses function as for profits, and I think it's important to demonstrate that like the inclusion of people with disabilities can be a profitable endeavor. Like my gym is a for
Mhm.
profit entity. AdaptX, this podcast, our education is a nonprofit, so I have a similar structure to you in terms of like having a branch that can provide some funding and having a branch that does education based, and then the for profit brick and mortar facility, like the actual classes, the actual sessions. And we don't work with only people with disabilities. About a quarter of our 250 members have disabilities, and the rest are high school collegiate athletes, general pop adults, etc. So try to make it like as inclusive as possible, so it's all populations like seamlessly coexisting. But I think it's important for profits to realize that catering to people with disabilities can be beneficial for their businesses. So like when you say like some gyms don't want you there, that's just like that just kind of sucks because they don't really realize the value proposition of it. I was curious, have you ever considered like opening your own space that's kind of central to the different areas that you work in?
Totally. I've always considered it. It's just so expensive. California is nuts. It's insane how much everything is. It's literally wild. Like, um, so you actually said a few things that I want to touch on, like that will actually look. I mean, might answer some of your questions that you just asked me. So you said, so first of all, you said that you wanted to demonstrate that working with people with disabilities can be a for-profit company. That's crazy because I've never heard anyone else say that. And that's something that was just a thought in my head when I first started my company. I was like, I'm not doing nonprofit. I'm doing a for-profit because I'm sick of all these stereotypes that people with disabilities are just like, we need to help, 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 help. Like, no, like we're freaking people. Like, come on. You know what I mean? So that's cool to hear. I like to hear that. Um, and what was I gonna say?
Maybe about the opening
It
your own
was something.
space.
Yeah. And also going back to like I would like to ask you actually about and I'll get back to the opening of my own space. So like, but have you ever like do you guys work at regional centers at all?
What do you mean by regional centers?
Government funding?
No, we don't get any government funding. We have some programs like day hab programs as well as special education schools that send classes to us. But outside of that, it's all just a private sector A lot of our young adults with disabilities are still either supported by their families, or maybe they have like flexible savings or flexible spending for their 22 plus budget, and they're able to build the gym into that funding. But I don't work directly with any funding sources. We whether you have
Okay.
whether you're a wheelchair user that requires basically one to one for our coach, or you're a high school athlete that's relatively independent, you pay the same price based on frequency to train with us. So
Yeah. 100%. Okay, cool. So, um, kind of trying to tie everything in together. So like our nonprofit. So we're doing three things. I answered the first one. I mentioned the first one. Excuse me. The second part is what we're trying to do is we're also trying to create a community of adaptive fitness professionals nationwide. So we want to be like we create a community, and so that way like we're trying to get all on the same page, trying to talk about what we talked about earlier, and trying to make it like create like a stringent program so that people that are in our field, they know it's like, hey, like we got to do things right. Like a big thing that I've been like focusing on is like um, recognize the effort, make sure it's effective, and then it'll be efficient and be efficient. Because like if someone has if they good effort but the exercise isn't there, that's not effective. If they're not being effective, we're not being efficient. So like if someone is doing an exercise and they're doing it poorly, hey, that was a really good effort, but let's do it like this. Let's take it back a step. And then so going back to so our nonprofit, we're also trying to influence the DDS, so the Department and Disability Services. We actually are trying to conduct research so that we can influence them, so to create a health and wellness sector, so that people like you and me can get funded or vendored so that individuals that can come to us and they don't have to pay out of pocket. They can have access to these programs that are gonna just really change their lives in the best way possible. So I definitely think after this we should create a communication between ourselves and relationships so that way I can work with you and I can make sure that you can um, keep your people on a list. And so, if you got a list of people like, hey, they can't afford it, I'm like, okay, let's figure out how we can get you guys some money. Let's get you guys do some fundraising so that way you can get people on like off your list and in your gym. Because like, and it's like it's the government not knowing what to do.
yeah,
And so what we want to do is we want to create research so that we can kind of show them like, hey, this is what we can do. It's going to improve their quality of life. It can actually reduce caregiver burden, which is a technical term. I'm not just saying that.
yeah,
Um, that's what the government calls it, caregiver burden, and reduce caregiver burden, reduce costs in the future. So there's a lot of things that can come out of that by trying to create a health and wellness sector
yeah. A place
through
like
the
DDS
government.
might not like they might not know that programs like ours really exist to like serve their clientele. So it might not be like they're not willing to do it. They might just see that there's not enough spaces because then everyone might start coming. Well, I shouldn't say everyone, but then people that aren't really qualified, aren't really sure what to do, might start coming out of the woodworks and trying to leverage that funding. So kind of like you said, like for the AdaptX course that we teach, we're trying to create a large database of certified professionals who are competent and qualified to work with people with disabilities. So then, like on our website, we have a directory. So you type in your zip code and it kind of gives you a listing of who the closest person who's completed our course is. So that's kind of a similar
I love
project
that.
that you mentioned, that trying to like just create a large community of people that are both passionate but also excellent like adaptive fitness instructors as well. So
I looked into your your certification. It looks solid, dude.
yeah,
I
yeah,
think that's really cool.
be happy to give
That's
you access
great.
to it
It's
if you
very
want to
good.
take a look.
Yeah, no, I mean, I just peeked on like Instagram and stuff, and I'm like, this is cool because this is something that I'll create my own eventually, but I think like you're definitely setting the bar high for that, and that's super cool. It's like because it's not out there, and people need to know, and it just something as simple as like understanding multiple sclerosis, understanding Down syndrome, like that's like so important, and people just they don't even think about that stuff. And that's what, like, and so I saw that, I'm like, that's sick. Like that's cool as hell that he's doing that. So
All right, well,
I'll give you
thanks.
props on that, dude.
Enough about me though. So maybe let's go back to let's go back to like whether you have any ambition maybe to open a facility.
Yeah,
Slash, how can I
it's
convince you to open a unified health and performance in California?
um it it it's one of those things where it's just it's like I'm down, but um
I mean, gym ownership is not. Some people, I feel like some people think gym ownership is like the pinnacle, but it's really not. And I think sometimes people get into owning a gym because they like working out themselves, and then they realize owning a gym is 75% just managing people and making sure the admin side is dialed in. So I certainly by no means think that like owning a gym is peak career success. Like if you're training people all
no,
day, you're improving lives, it's financially supports the life that you want. Like the risk that's
yeah.
associated with opening a facility and like absorbing all that overhead isn't necessarily going to be the right choice unless the social like the economics make sense.
Yeah, and I mean, there's so many things going on when you ask me that. I'm like, that's why I don't even know what to say first. I mean, like right now, everyone's trying to push back. Like in California, they're like Orange County is not as maybe like they're not gonna fall into it as soon as other places. But everyone's trying to push like mask mandates and stuff, and I'm like, dude, are we doing this again? Because obviously, I want everyone to be healthy and safe, but if we bring that back and it's like we open a brick and mortar, if it gets shut down, like then we're paying rent and we go like we go back to working out in the park. It's just it's really tough because like, we don't know what's happening above us, and if other people have a say on what we do, I don't like the idea of that. So it's hard for me to say I'll have something. I definitely would love to have something, and I think what I would actually do is I would create a facility with a nonprofit, create like an adaptive lab somewhere we can continue to build research and then also maybe train some people and then also hold some group classes. But then we still want to maybe make it like a hub location so that we can still branch out and reduce that barrier of access for individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities, so we can still go out in different communities and instead of just saying, "Hey, you got to come to us," because that's just not realistic for a lot of people. I mean, we want to make sure that we can be there for people instead of just saying, this is the only spot that this happens.
Yeah.
We want to be like, oh, hey, it's actually only 10 minutes from you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, I and that's where like I have my gym in the small area of Massachusetts. We can serve people within a 30-minute drive radius. But then my goal as a whole is to help as many people with disabilities as possible become healthier. So it's like my way of doing that initially was like the course we created, help more people start programs like ours, run programs like ours. But now it's kind of like the more physical locations we could come up with, the more places there'll be for people with disabilities to train. And I also think it's important for a lot of our clients without disabilities as well to like see that, to like be in the same environment as people with intellectual and developmental disabilities, so they can kind of so their perception of disability changes. Like I got a really nice letter from one of our college athletes before he just left for school, and he was it was like really vulnerable. He was like, I joined your gym in 7th grade. I was a bully in 6th grade, and now he's like one of the volunteers like in some of our adaptive classes. And he was like, just being exposed to that environment and seeing all those people completely changed how I saw differences. So I think like brick and mortar environments that are cohesive and are inclusive are really important for like kind of rewriting some of those narratives. So not to push you in one way or the other, but I think a gym that trains people with and without disabilities simultaneously can be a really good source of change for communities, at least in my small experience.
I mean, that's super cool to hear that. And it's something that we've always talked about, and it's just something that haven't really pulled the trigger. It's because like we just have so much um we just have so much work going on already. So it's like I'm like I don't even know where like we would fit it in.
Yeah.
And like a big thing right now that we're dealing with is just trying to find people to hire. I can't like we've and like people like I don't mind training people at all. But so like the way I look at it is like you either need to have an exercise background where you either have trained people, exercise background, exercise science background preferably, or you need to know how to work with people with disabilities, and I'll teach one or the other. If you're open, like it's like I don't mind teaching at all, but just finding people, it's been tough. It's been
Yeah.
tough, and no one wants to work. I don't know what's up with that.
Yeah, yeah, it's tough. I can definitely relate to the struggle of finding coaches that are really solid. I got two awesome full time coaches here now that make a lot of the burden of my work a lot easier, but without them, it would be a lot tougher to run the facility that we run. Maybe we wrap up a lot of these conversations with the question like, what do you think needs to be done to make fitness more accessible for people with disabilities?
I think the biggest thing is educating individuals so that way people like that want to be in like our shoes can know what to do when they go to train people. I think the biggest issue is individuals that want to go and help people with disabilities don't necessarily know what to do. And I think another huge aspect to that is educating families and parents and saying how good it is for individuals with disabilities to exercise. So specifically, like people with Down syndrome, I don't know if you're familiar with this, but there's at the early onset of Alzheimer's disease, dementia. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah, one of our
Um,
research coordinators
yeah.
is kind of leading the charge in that at Kansas State.
Oh, cool, cool. Yeah, I mean, obviously it's not the coolest thing to talk about, but it's something serious.
Yeah.
But so here, I'll put this out here. Something when I was wrapping up my master's program, kind of did some A plus B equals C research, and so typical and this is I'm a little fishy on this. I'm not 100%. So like typically developing people when they get Alzheimer's disease, a lot of it the plaque deposits happen in their temporal lobe in their brain. And there's another part too. I'm just blinking right now. And then, but people with Down syndrome, they have a high accumulation in their frontal lobe of the plaque deposits. They also saw that physical activity is the only thing to reduce, mitigate, or even suppress the onset or the progression of Alzheimer's disease dementia plaque deposits. With that being said, resistance training is a form of physical activity. Resistance training specifically targets the frontal lobe, where people with Down syndrome have a high accumulation of plaque deposits. So that's kind of like the way when I kind of put that together, I was like, wow, resistance training specifically is so important for people with Down syndrome. It's like it might be like almost like the golden ticket to improving their quality of life because I think what like in early 1900s, like the average age of someone with Down syndrome was like what like 12.
Yeah.
But now with modern medicine, yes, I mean it's modern medicine we're able to do heart surgery. My sister has had two open heart surgeries when she was before she was 10. She was hospitalized 5 times with pneumonia, and when she was 22 or something, she had a pacemaker put in, and that's all modern medicine. So now, like, and that's great. That's awesome. I mean, yeah, obviously it's great, but now we have to do the other end. How are we gonna make sure that their life is good? How are we gonna make sure that they can have a good life? How can they make sure that they live longer?
Yeah.
Um, exercise, and lifestyle. Making sure they're eating healthy, just like anyone. And it's. I feel like it's so crazy that we have to force this. And it's not force it, really push it.
Yeah.
But it's so important just to have a good lifestyle and just eat
Yeah.
healthy, exercise moderately at least. So
I think people are surprised when they kind of find out that there's more similarities and differences when training people with and without disabilities. And like how you set up exercises, how you set up the environment, how you cue is going to differ a little bit based on the client's cognition and their motor skills. But at the end of the day, like good strength and conditioning is good strength and conditioning, whether you have a disability or not. And I wholeheartedly agree with the Down syndrome stuff. We're about to submit a grant proposal for a study on high intensity resistance training in clients with Down syndrome. And so we're hoping that gets funded early 2024 so we can run the intervention.
Awesome.
So yeah, it's something maybe I'll pick your brain or kind of loop you in on some of that stuff if it's anything that interests you. But I think the conversation was great, and it's I love that there's other programs out there that run quality and that really like care about the quality and not just the access, but also the product that they put out there. So it's great that you kind of hold that to a high standard, really well aligned with what I hope to see and what I want to accomplish with my work as well. So, Brad, I appreciate kind of having you as a part of our connections now. And if we can send any people your way in California, then that would be great. So,
Yeah, it was great talking to you. It was great hearing, kind of echoing what you said, like someone that's trying to create the access and keep the quality control. So it's really cool talking to you and meeting you, dude, because I
yeah,
think we need more people that are doing things that, you and I are doing and making sure that they're just doing it right. So
I hope so.
I
Hopefully,
hope
some of
we
this work will
I hope we
encourage people.
yes, yeah, and I hope we run into each other someday, you
Yeah,
know.
likewise. All right. Well, thank you for joining us today. I'll be sure to share some links to your work and profiles in the show notes. And we will be sharing the episode in the next few weeks. So, Brad, thanks again for joining me.
All right, Brandon. Thanks for having me. Have a great day, man.
You too. Thank you for listening to the AdaptX podcast. Our effort to amplify the ideas of our guests and create more inclusive and accessible industries is futile unless these episodes reach a larger audience. If you enjoyed our discussion today, please leave us a rating or a review on whichever platform you use. And if you would like to learn more about AdaptX, the course that we teach to health and fitness professionals and the projects that our organization is working on, you can subscribe to our newsletter through our website, www.adaptx.org. Until next Monday.